back to Mr. Obsolete's Vintage Homesteading. Today our job is going to be sharpening my axe. This is my #1 most used axe. I've showed it in prior videos. It's a Collins double bit. It's a cruiser's axe because it's very narrow through here. It was used out in the woods a lot. My #1 use for this is splitting firewood. My #2 use is limbing. And #3 is brushing. Now, it's starting to get a little dull. It's got a few little nicks and stuff in it, but it's been 4 years since I've sharpened this, and I've used it a lot. I've cut lots and lots of cords of wood with it. So there's lots and lots of different ways of sharpening an axe, and I'm not going to say which one's best because everybody has their own idea. I'm just going to talk about what works for me. I don't consider myself an expert, so I'm just going to talk briefly about the different things that I use, and I'll talk a little bit about the history on this a little bit again. I found out some more information on the company. Primarily what I use are these small files, and the quality of the file is extremely important. I used Nicholson files for years, made in the US, but they've cheapened them up. They're not very good anymore, which is really unfortunate because their stuff was probably the best stuff you could buy. Now this one I bought from Snap-on, and it used to be a rebadged Nicholson, but this one's actually made in Portugal, and this has really good steel and it really cuts nice. It's got a nice fine single cut on it. It really works good for these. This is another one I bought from the local saw shop, and the saw shop that we go to actually is a real commercial saw shop. They do repairs and everything, rebuilds, and sell everything under the sun for logging. This one's made in Sweden, and it's pretty good, but it's not as good as that one. So the thing that I do, take a black marker and I'll go ahead and put it on across the face like this, so it's about 1/8 of an inch. And like I say, since I'm no expert on this, what it does is when I take the file and cut it, I can see how far back I'm cutting and I can control the edge. Now this one, probably can't see it on the camera, but it's got a few nicks and stuff. I've hit some rocks, and some of the trees around here, when they grow up, get rocks embedded in them, and you can be cutting halfway through a tree and hit a small rock and it'll put a ding in it. So anyway, we'll start on this. So you kind of want to establish your angle. Just take a few cuts and just watch. You probably can see the contrast right there, but you can see I've got a nice, fairly even cut on it, and it's got almost the nicks out of it. I need to sharpen a little bit more on the corner here. So we'll go ahead and do some more, and when we get further along with it, we'll come back. Okay, well, we've got our basic edge done. You can see that line across there is fairly equal. It's still got a few little nicks, but I'm not going to take those out because it just cuts a lot more metal off. You can see there again, a little nick right here, but for the type of use that I'm using it for, it's not that important. Because, like I say, this axe has been on the job for 80 years. And it's got enough metal in it for another 80, so these are a lifetime tool. So what we'll do now is a sharpening stone. And there's two sides to it. One's a coarse side like this one here, and then there's a finer one for the finish work here. And there's two ways of doing this. The most common puck like this is a Lansky, and I'm not sure if this is one. They actually show you using this dry with no oil on it, but almost every video or anything I've ever seen, people are using oil or kerosene or something on it. So Put a little oil in here on the coarse side to begin with. And since it has this beveled edge here and stuff, you can put your fingers like this so that they're not anywhere close to the cutting edge. So you want to start out and use the circular motion, kind of follow the taper there, and count about the same number of cuts with every one. Pretty good. So we'll do the other 3 edges and we'll be back in a little bit. Okay, we've got the rough cut on it now and it's a lot sharper. It's pretty nice. So now we'll use the fine side of the stone to finish it. You can tell by the sound, it's not as coarse sounding, it's a lot finer, and it does a really nice job of putting that nice sharp edge on there. See all the material that's coming off there. That's metal filings there coming out. So it's best to, before putting these away, to wipe them down, put a little more oil on it. Wipe it, pull the metal out, and it's ready to go for next time. The last thing I'm going to do, we'll be using a strop, a leather strop. This isn't really necessary, but it really puts a super nice finish on there. Compound I'm using is a green, it's a medium. I have fine, medium, and coarse, and this works best for stuff I do. You just drag it across here. What that does, it takes off a little tiny burr that's left from the cutting and stuff. It's just a super fine abrasive. It's nice and sharp. One thing I was going to talk about too a little bit. One of my other videos I talked about the history of the Collins Axe Company, and I found some more information out because they went bankrupt in 1966, and Stanley and a few others bought different parts of that line, but Matt Edge Tool of Lewiston, Pennsylvania bought the axes and stuff, and they made them from 1966 to 2003, and in 2004 they were sold to Trooper Jimenez in Mexico, and they're called Trooper axes, and you see these all over the place, and I've never used one, but looking at the reviews, they're not so good. So best vintage is best. So what we're going to do now, let's go chopping. Okay, well, we've got another small unwanted tree here, and It's right in our walk path, and I want to widen this up where I can drive the tractor. I'm a small tractor through here, and I can't do that right now. So let's see how the old axe cuts here. Yeah, one cut that's almost halfway through. So basically 4 cuts and we're just about through. And then the other thing I want to talk about briefly is why I use this for splitting wood. So let's see at the splitting area. Okay, here's some wood. I've talked before about finding the cracks in it. Hopefully you can see that on the camera. These two pieces are about the same thickness. So I want to talk about using there again a splitting axe with a wide pole and a fast taper and stuff here. And there's a little bit of a knot there. We'll see how it goes through. It works best on stuff like that with a knot. But if you're just cutting a piece like this, it sticks in the wood just a tiny amount, but this one sticks in a lot more. And there again, going back to talking about why you use a double bit for splitting. With a thin profile, it cuts a lot deeper with the same amount of energy than this one does, because it's wider and sticks. It uses the wedge principle here to snap it apart, whereas this cuts all the way through it. And so I cut stuff about 24 inches with this, usually in one swipe. And there's knots in it. I'll use this because it's heavier. But for everything else, this is the one. So we'll see you on the next video. Remember, vintage is best.